They loved each other so much that they couldn't spend a minute apart, at least that's how it seemed to them. Therefore, the question of getting married didn't even arise. They were perfectly content without an official stamp in their passports. To them, love couldn't be confined by the boundaries of the law. It existed outside the law. If it's there, it will be, and if it's not, no law can make it happen. Marcus and Ella thought this way, but their parents had a different perspective. Under parental pressure, or rather under the pressure of Ella's more assertive parent, her father, they had to formalize their love with a legal marriage. For over a year, Ella and Marcus lived together, simply lived, without giving much thought to the official paperwork. They were certain they'd be together forever, and as for the official stamp, well, what's a stamp? If their parents wanted that insignificant stamp in their passports, fine, let it be. Ella's parents, especially her father, were insistent about the registration. When they learned that Ella and Marcus had been living together in an apartment for over a year, Walter wasted no time in voicing his opinion on the matter. It's not up to us to marry or unmarry you. If you want a wedding, we'll have one. If not, we'll give you money to go somewhere. These days, there are all sorts of wedding tours. So, first the stamps, and then the resort. Do you understand, Marcus? I understand, Marcus replied, though he wanted to say something more. But who would let him? When Walter was around, the last word was always his, and no buts were allowed. So, tomorrow we're filing the application at the registry office, and no objections, Walter stated. Nobody is objecting, Marcus replied. We just hadn't thought about it. Marcus shouldn't have said that. Haven't thought about it, Walter shouted. Will you start thinking when Ella gets pregnant? You young people are so irresponsible. You lack wisdom. Consult with me while I'm still alive. I won't give you bad advice. What do you think about the wedding? Dad, why Ella? Immediately, Ella intervened. You'll scare Marcus away for real. He might actually run from me. She tried to lighten the mood. So, will there be a wedding or not? Walter insisted. There won't be a wedding, Marcus replied. We'll just register the marriage. That's your opinion, but maybe my daughter wants what all girls want. A white dress, limousines, gifts, and such. No, Dad, I don't want that. We're fine without it. Let's just go somewhere. All right, that's how it's going to be, Walter agreed. But I won't leave here until I see those stamps in your passports. That's how it is, my dears. You'll have to endure me. Dad, seriously, you don't trust us. And how are we going to fit in a one-bedroom apartment? Ella protested. We'll manage. People live more cramped lives. They even managed to have 5 kids. Walter laughed at his own joke. Within a few hours, Marcus was ready to strangle his future father-in-law with his endless jokes. He couldn't fathom how he would endure Walter for 2 whole months. A week after filing the application, their marriage with Ella was registered. Well, I didn't manage to stay at your place for long, Walter lamented. But you know what, Marcus, you're a real man. You can achieve something. They gave Walter a solemn send-off all the way to the station. What do I want to tell you, my children? Walter began his paternal farewell advice. Live in harmony, Walter said. Only when the train carried the uninvited guest away did the young couple finally breathe a sigh of relief. It takes a lot of courage to put up with your dad, Marcus summed up. And imagine what it's like for my mom and me, enduring that for a lifetime. That's why I left home to come here and study. I just couldn't breathe anymore under his suffocating parental love. Pomona is there now, waiting to finish school so she can escape from under Daddy's thumb. I feel sorry for Mom, but she seems to take Dad's commands calmly. I guess she's gotten used to them over the years. Over a year passed. Ella and Marcus lived together, and Ella became pregnant. They were in their 4th year of college, still studying and learning for 2 more years, and then this happened. Pregnancy. Well, since it happened this way, we'll have to give birth, Marcus said firmly, and at the same time, it seemed like he was reproaching Ella. I'm not planning to take an academic leave for childcare. There won't be any child. It's too early for us to have kids, Ella replied. Ella, you just said have kids. You have pets, cats, dogs, but a child, there's already one inside you, and it probably hears us. that we're afraid and don't want it, and you're thinking of getting rid of it. No, Ella, let's have the baby. It's our first pregnancy. And what if after an abortion, you lose the ability to conceive? That can happen. Don't make it sound so ominous. Nowadays, there are advanced techniques for such a simple procedure. Everything will be fine. We're not ready for kids right now. I don't know, Ella, but I want this child. It's not at fault that we've been studying for 2 years. It's not at fault at all. It came into existence in you to be born and live. Let's give it a chance to live, I beg you. I said no. There won't be a child, Ella firmly responded. Marcus looked at her. At that moment, she reminded him of her father, equally uncompromising and convinced of her own rightness. Marcus was even scared of her determination. Usually, women want to keep the child, especially when their husband asks for it. But here she was, calmly discussing the termination of their child. He also worried that Ella simply didn't like children. He hadn't noticed her being charmed by kids like many women are. He had heard about women who are incapable of love towards children, even their own, who don't experience maternal feelings. Marcus wanted children, not just one, but 2 or 3. He was an only son to his parents and desperately longed for a sibling, so he had decided long ago that he'd have at least 2 kids. Ella, we're a family now. We'll need children eventually, so why not now? Marcus weakly attempted to dissuade her from the abortion, but it was met with a torrent of emotions. Enough. Stop appealing to my reason. I'm a perfectly reasonable person, and I'm thinking perfectly rationally given our current situation. There won't be a child, Ella declared. And the child was no more. She came home, a bit pale, but with a sense of duty fulfilled. She had to do it, and so she did. For the first time, Marcus didn't dwell on her pallor. For the first time, he didn't feel sorry for her, and she didn't complain about pain or anything else. She just lay there, scrolling through her phone, so calm and serene, as if nothing had happened, as if she had a minor headache and had decided to lie down and rest. She asked for some sweet tea, and Marcus handed her the favorite drink she used to consume in liters. He handed it to her and turned away, not wanting to witness how children were simply disposed of like this. "What's wrong, Marcus?" she asked, noticing his reaction. "Everything's wrong," he replied. "You ended a life, and here you are, sipping tea. I didn't see a hint of remorse in your face or your soul. Am I supposed to beat my head against the wall? Don't exaggerate. Don't paint it worse than it is. There wasn't anyone to kill there, just a cluster of blood. Our blood, yours and mine, from which a human would have formed." "Enough," I said. Ella yelled. "It's done, and there's nothing to discuss here." She turned angrily to the wall and continued scrolling through her phone. The talk about the unborn child was over. They lived on as before, and it seemed like everything was back to normal. But even then, it was never the same as it was before Ella's abortion. Marcus saw her in a completely different light, and he began to doubt whether they would ever have children. They might give life to other children when Ella deemed it rational, but they denied that first tiny life. Marcus had no idea what was going on in Ella's mind regarding their future children, and he was afraid to bring up the topic. After everything that had happened, he thought for the first time, maybe this is how understanding between loving people gradually dies, and then love dies. Ella didn't expect such a reaction from Marcus to the abortion. She sensed a change in him, a shift from his former ease to seriousness. She attributed it to their legal marriage. When they became husband and wife, Marcus began assuming the role of a family father, desiring children. But she wasn't just a mere female to give birth to children at his whim. Now Marcus was taking precautions. He couldn't rely on his wife for this. He couldn't allow abortions that Ella took so lightly. It wasn't easy for him, and he deeply felt the abortion and Ella's attitude towards it. At some point, he even felt like he had fallen out of love with his wife. But time passed. Things fell into place, and love ultimately triumphed over hurt and confusion. After graduating from college, Marcus was offered a great job. "You're lucky," Ella said. "You didn't run around, didn't subject yourself to endless interviews, where they would say, 'We'll call you,' implying you're not needed. They came to you and asked for you." Marcus felt that she was saying this with envy, not rejoicing in his success, but he pushed away those thoughts. Ella, this is wonderful, a good salary, and opportunities for professional growth. With this kind of salary, we could afford a mortgage on a flat. My dear, my love, Marcus hugged his wife. We could have our own child. Ella remained suspiciously quiet. Ella, are you hearing me? We could have our little one. Why rush so far ahead? His wife calmly replied. We don't have a flat yet. But we can dream, Ella. We haven't dreamed together for so long. Let's dream. Marcus beamed. Dreams, dreams. We dream about so much, but they don't always come true. So, is it worth dreaming just to end up disappointed? It's worth it, Ella. It's worth it, my dear. A person without dreams. Well, I don't know. Can you even live without dreams? So, Ella, what do you dream about? And I've shared my dream. Do your dreams align with mine? As for a flat and a mortgage, yes, they do. But when it comes to children, no. What do you mean, no? Marcus asked, puzzled. And why not? You've found your professional niche, but what about me? Where am I? Ella for some reason grew angrier, with diapers and in the kitchen. Do you ever think of me as anything other than a female reproducing children? I do think about you, not just as a female. Marcus stumbled. I think about you as the mother of our children, Ella. Right now, I'm looking for a job that satisfies my ambitions. Yes, yes, don't look at me like that. I'm calling things by their names. I'm planning to find a job and grow in my career, and diapers can wait. I'm only 23. I see no reason to rush. Is that clear? Couldn't be clearer. Marcus said softly. A loving husband asks his wife for a child. Another woman would have been delighted. But I'm not another woman. Do you like others? The road is open, and I'm not holding you back, nor will I. Marcus had no intention of responding to these speeches. He understood that if words escalated, it would lead to a scandal. He disliked conflicts and didn't want them. To avoid reaching the point of no return and to preserve their feelings, he tried to defuse the impending storm of emotions. Because Ella couldn't find a job she considered suitable for herself, these quarrels grew more frequent. Marcus would often distance himself from conflicts, sometimes quite literally, leaving home to give Ella some time to calm down. Sometimes he would go to friends, other times he would just sit in a cafe across from their home, drinking coffee and looking at the windows, their windows where the lights were still on, waiting for him. He would return, and he and Ella would have a passionate night of reconciliation, calming the fights for a while. Eventually, Ella found a job she deemed worthy, and the conflicts in their family dwindled to almost nothing. Both spouses were engrossed in their work. Ella, in particular, burned with passion for her job. The company's management valued her dedication, and she climbed the career ladder successfully. Between Ella and Marcus, an unspoken taboo emerged regarding the topic of having a child. Marcus was afraid to broach the subject, seeing how Ella dedicated herself to her career and a child. She simply didn't have time for it, almost no time at all. A crack formed between them, promising to grow into a chasm, making it impossible for them to reach each other. Ella often stayed at work late, and Marcus didn't hurry home. To whom should he rush? Despite her passion for work, Ella realized that if things continued this way, she would lose Marcus, something she didn't want at all. So, she decided to initiate a conversation about having a child. She came home early from work, ordered food from a restaurant, set up a festive dinner, and waited for Marcus. She knew Marcus's work hours ended at 6 in the evening, so the table would be set by the time he should arrive. In general, she didn't know when Marcus came home these days, as he had been coming back later than her for a while. She would arrive, and he would already be home. She waited, but he didn't show up. She called him, but he was out of reach. Has he found someone else? The thought crept into Ella's mind. Have I lost him? I should have warned him this morning that I have a serious talk planned for the evening. She even got scared that she had delayed having a child and that Marcus might leave her as a result. And then, engrossed in her work, she barely saw him. While she built her career, some nimble girl could have taken him away. Marcus arrived close to 10 in the evening. Candles, glasses, champagne were set on the table, and Ella was sleeping on the couch, having fallen asleep while waiting for him. Marcus touched his wife's shoulder, and she jolted awake. She looked at her husband, the table with the cooling dinner, and said, "I wanted to arrange a celebration for us and talk about having a child." About a child? Marcus was surprised. "Do we have a child on the way? Lately, we haven't been close. We hardly see each other. Do you think a child can save us?" Her husband read her thoughts. That was exactly what she had been thinking, that having a child might save their marriage. "Marcus, I love you, and I don't want to lose you. You wanted a child, and we have everything we need for one to come into our lives. But I feel like the main thing is missing a family and the love in which our child could grow." "You're wrong, Marcus. Love sometimes gets tired and gets sick, but it's within our power to heal it. Our little one will help with that." Ella hugged her husband and burst into tears. He had never seen her cry before, and he felt sorry for her. He embraced her, held her close, and gently patted her head. "I've always been, Ella, I've always been in favor of having a child." "Well, let's put these tears aside. It's a celebration after all," Marcus said, pouring champagne into the glasses. "And come back from work a bit earlier, Ella. We need to work hard on our dream to have a baby." Ella smiled at her husband and took a sip of champagne. Alcohol was now off limits for them. They would plan to conceive a healthy child. "It's that abortion that's to blame for your infertility," Marcus reproached her. "Maybe you're the one who's incapable of conception," Ella retorted. "Men can have such issues too. Are we going to blame each other, or should we consult specialists?" "Let's seek help," Marcus agreed. "We'll go together and find out everything." "No, I'll go alone, and you go separately. I can't stand those situations where men wait outside the gynecologist's office. Let's not panic. Let's just get ourselves examined." The doctor's findings showed no abnormalities in Ella or Marcus, but Ella still couldn't conceive. "Maybe it's God's punishment," Marcus said at one point, "for that abortion." "Marcus, you're even bringing God into this," Ella smiled. But inside, she thought, maybe it's true. After all, I'll never have children. She bought that medical certificate stating that she didn't have any pathologies in her reproductive system. What she hoped for, she herself didn't know. A miracle. What kind of miracle? Would Marcus accept the impossibility of having children and not leave her? But what if she became pregnant? Miracles do happen. They started quarreling frequently again, all because the miracle didn't happen. She immersed herself in work once more, while he waited. Or did he not? Once, after another argument, he left home and, as he used to do, went to the cafe across the street. On weekdays in the evenings, it was sparsely populated. He ordered coffee with croissants, sat down at a table, and looked around. Right in front of him, at the adjacent table by the window, a young woman was sitting. She was crying, looking out the window and crying. She didn't even try to hide her tears, didn't wipe them with a handkerchief. They flowed down her cheeks and dropped into her coffee cup. She didn't touch the coffee. It was clear that she was not in the mood for it. Marcus felt sorry for the woman. He couldn't bear to see women crying. Maybe she needed help. Something terrible must have happened to make her cry in public. Or perhaps he could help her somehow. Sometimes, people are in pain and have no one to turn to. He wanted to approach her, to talk, but he hesitated, sipping his coffee and stealing glances at her. She noticed his scrutinizing gaze, took out a handkerchief from her bag, wiped her tears, and seemed ready to leave. Finally, Marcus gathered his courage and approached her. "Excuse me," he said. "Did someone hurt you? Do you need help?" She raised tear-filled eyes to him, and in them, he read immense pain. "There's no help for me," she replied. "Thank you for caring. I have to go." She stood up and headed towards the exit. In those words, Marcus understood that in that very moment, she needed support, just the support of a person who couldn't handle their own pain and suffering. People nowadays are so indifferent to each other. When they see someone on the street who clearly needs help or support, they often walk by, assuming it's not their concern, not their business. Marcus had always been frustrated by such indifference. If he saw that someone needed another human being, he couldn't just pass by. He would offer help. Just like now, he couldn't ignore a lonely crying woman. Let me walk you. It's getting late, Marcus said. She didn't say anything, just nodded in agreement. They walked in silence for a while. Marcus wanted to start a conversation with the girl, but he feared that he might unintentionally make her feel worse. The silence became awkward, but he couldn't find the right words to initiate their interaction. She was the first to speak up. I buried my mom today, she said, her voice choked with tears. Here, Marcus was utterly lost. He knew that when a loved one passes away, there are no words that can truly console the grieving person. There are no words that can ease the pain of losing someone dear. All those "my condolences," "stay strong," "hang in there," they're just obligatory phrases, empty words, sometimes even irritating. He knew that from his own experience. When his father died, he had to endure such attempts at comfort, which felt more like excuses, devoid of real empathy. It's hard to say goodbye to the dearest ones, Marcus said. I understand you, because I've had to lose close family members. My name is Chloe, the girl introduced herself. I'm Marcus, and if you want to talk about something, then go ahead. Sometimes it's easier to tell strangers what you can't tell your close ones. I hardly have any close ones left. My brother, who couldn't come to the funeral, I had to bury our mom myself, and that's incredibly hard without the support of loved ones. He's in the Navy, a soldier. He just couldn't make it, you know. I understand. What about friends or girlfriends? My mom was sick for a long time, bedridden. I've been taking care of her for 2.5 years. Who needs a friend like that? Nowadays, friends are about parties and entertainment. But I was by my mom's bedside all the time. I couldn't even work. We couldn't afford a caregiver. We lived on my mom's disability pension. My brother helped, and I did odd jobs, like cleaning the staircases in our building. I'd clean one staircase, rush back home to check on mom, then clean another. I'm not complaining. I get used to this life. And now my mom's gone, and I'm scared to enter the apartment because she's not there anymore. Her things, her bed, her beloved books, they're all there, but she's not. Do you understand? Chloe cried. I understand. When my father died, I went through what you're describing, but I had my mom beside me, and we supported each other as best we could. We held a memorial for my mom in this cafe where we met. There were only a few people, neighbors, her former colleagues, and then, when everyone left, I just couldn't find the strength to go back home, where my mom is no longer there. Her belongings, her bed, her favorite books are there, but she's not. I don't know how to move forward. Everyone goes through this after saying goodbye to a loved one on their final journey. To overcome the pain, you need time. You need people you can talk to about all of this, people who can understand you, just like now. Thank you, Chloe smiled through her tears. Thank you for walking me home. Here's my place. We've arrived. You've helped me, Marcus, really. I've shared all of this with you, and I feel a bit lighter. I'll leave you my phone number, Marcus said. It might be tough, but feel free to call me. I won't intrude on your grief. I know that when your soul is hurting, you might not always want to answer calls. So, call me without hesitation. People need each other, even strangers, and now we've met. I'll call you, Marcus, I will. Goodbye. Where have you been for so long? Ella asked displeasedly. Marcus silently undressed and went to bed. Ella embraced him, kissed his neck, but Marcus, for the first time, didn't respond to his wife's affection. She couldn't believe her eyes. 2 clear lines on the pregnancy test strip. Could it be that a miracle had happened and she was pregnant? Ella's heart rejoiced, yet doubts lingered. After all, the doctor had said that she couldn't have children. Until she confirmed her pregnancy, Marcus wouldn't know. Pregnancy, 3 to 4 weeks, the doctor said. Are you planning to keep the pregnancy? She asked sternly. I will, Ella smiled. Of course I will. She rushed home with her happy news, a miracle. She didn't want to tell Marcus about it over the phone. She would wait until he returned from work, and then, she already imagined how happy he would be, how happy they both would be. Their family hadn't experienced such bright emotions in a long time, and here it was, happiness. She was eager to share the news, but Marcus wasn't in a hurry to come home. He just didn't rush. She dialed his phone number to find out when he would be back, but Marcus didn't answer. Every time she called him, Marcus declined the call. He was sitting in the cafe across from their home, together with Chloe. Chloe had called him and asked for a meeting. More than a week had passed since he walked her home, and he thought she wouldn't call, but today she did, and he found himself oddly pleased. It meant she still needed him, or more accurately, she needed his support. Marcus noticed that the lights were on in the windows of their apartment with Ella. She was persistently calling him, which was rare. It meant she really needed him. He would try to get back home as soon as he could. He looked at Chloe and realized he liked her. On the day when she was completely engulfed in sorrow, with her swollen face, red eyes from crying, disheveled hair, and her grayish suit that made her seem not as young as she did now, her eyes especially captivated him, so deep, like pools he wanted to drown in. On that day, he hadn't really studied her face or her eyes. On that day, Chloe was nothing but grief, and he simply felt sorry for her. They were drinking coffee, and Marcus remained in expectant silence. "Marcus, I have a request for you. I'm really embarrassed to ask you, but I have no one else to turn to. I thought, maybe you could help me. I don't know yet about your request, so I can't say if I'll be able to help. What do you need?" She blushed, looking even more attractive. "I've been trying to find a job for a week, but with no success. Well, there are jobs, low-paying, and simple ones. I've been searching for a job in my profession, but unfortunately, jobs are scarce here. So, who are you professionally?" "Chloe. I'm a PR manager, and I worked a bit in a small company, but you see, a 2.5-year break brings some difficulties, and it's hard for me to convince an employer of my competence. I can't tell you right away if I can help, but I'll do my best. I know a lot of people in the field, many friends. I'll try to assist you. If I come across something for you, I'll give you a call. But do I need to call you myself?" He wanted to say, "No need," but looking into her hopeful eyes, eyes that believed she could still call him, he couldn't bring himself to answer that way. "Of course, call me. And now, Chloe, I'm sorry, but I really have to run. Would you mind if I leave so quickly? My wife is waiting for me." He mentioned his wife on purpose, so Chloe would understand that he was simply trying to help her as a fellow human being. Or maybe he mentioned his wife to remind himself that he was married, to prevent himself from drowning in Chloe's eyes, and to let Chloe know he wasn't available. No, Chloe rushed to respond. "I won't be offended. I'm grateful that you care about my requests. You could have just ignored my call or not come, and I would have understood. Everyone has their own life. But you did come. Thank you." Marcus rushed home, thinking, with what sadness she said, "Thank you." It seemed to him that she was disappointed when she heard about his wife. Or did he just imagine it? "Where have you been, Marcus?" Ella rushed to embrace her husband as he entered the door. "I have such news. I'm bursting to share it with you, but you're nowhere to be found." "Congratulations," Marcus said. "Another promotion, and this time, who did you step on to move up?" "You silly goose," Ella laughed. "I'm pregnant, Marcus. Your wife is pregnant." "Ella, is this not a joke?" Marcus came to life. "It's not a joke." Marcus scooped his wife into his arms and spun her around the room. Let go. You're crazy," Ella laughed. "I won't let go." Marcus laughed. "I'll carry you and our little one like this. See, everything is good between us, and we're going to have a child. 2 children. Marcus laughed. "I won't settle for less. Guess you'll have to deliver the second one yourself." A joyful Ella teased. "Yeah, if only I could. I would have had 3 by now. Let's celebrate this joy." Marcus poured himself a brandy. "And I'll have juice." Ella practically jumped with joy. "Of course, juice for you, Ella. What else do pregnant women like?" "I'll do everything for my little ones." "I don't know yet," Ella replied. "For now, it's business as usual. I don't even feel pregnant." Ella hadn't seen Marcus this happy in a long time, and being by his side made her happy too. Soon, there would be 3 of them, but would they still be as happy then? After all, children weren't just joy. They brought with them hard work. Ella understood this, but did Marcus? Her friend's happiness with her child turned into a divorce. Her friend's husband grew jealous of the child, feeling neglected by the attention she gave to their little one. Eventually, he found someone else, and they divorced. All of Ella's thoughts and worries were in vain. as a miscarriage occurred during her 3rd month of pregnancy. The miracle didn't last long, and the doctor said, "It was a miracle in the first place that you got pregnant. Maybe by some miracle, it could happen again, but the medical indications suggest otherwise." Doctors couldn't prevent the miscarriage, and when Marcus came to visit his wife in the hospital, he saw how she was coping. There was no indifference in her now, unlike after an abortion. He didn't expect this change in her. Her lightness had turned into depression. The joy their future child had given them died with it. Ella withdrew into her sorrow, while Marcus tried to bring her back to her old self. He surrounded her with attention and care and kept saying, "Ella, we'll try again, and it will work out for us. We'll have a little one. You just have to believe. We can't lose hope, or else." Or else what? Marcus didn't voice it, but Ella understood that everything might collapse: their hopes, their love, and ultimately their family. She didn't want that. She would keep Marcus all to herself. She wouldn't give him up to anyone. She knew that men often lacked the patience to keep consoling a woman. To pity her, men grew wary of it quickly. So, she took matters into her own hands and did her best to encourage herself. Marcus noticed that Ella's bouts of joyful emotions were followed by brief but evident periods of depression. Ella would lie facing the wall in silence. At those times, Marcus would pick her up like a child, hold her close, and she would cling to him, crying bitterly. Doctors managed to pull Ella out of her depressive state, but something had changed within her. Ella herself had changed, and it was a completely different woman from the one Marcus knew and loved. She became careless in her appearance, indifferent to her own looks, qualities that were once foreign to her. She lost a lot of weight, and if thinness brought out some people's beauty, it had the opposite effect on Ella, making her look older. The youthful plumpness of her cheeks vanished, replaced by a trace of sadness around her eyes and between her brows. Ella became apathetic towards food. She didn't care about Marcus's meals either. He would come home from work, and she would be indifferent. She stopped cooking altogether, often leaving Marcus to find an empty kitchen. He would then go to the store, cook, and practically force her to have dinner with him. Work was the only thing keeping Ella afloat. She immersed herself in it completely. Amidst all these events, Marcus not only forgot about Chloe's request, but he also found himself unable to focus on finding a job for her. Chloe would call him occasionally, but she would receive negative responses. "Not yet, nothing suitable," Marcus would reply, "but Marcus, thank you. In the end, you're not obligated, but I'm still grateful to you. At least I can talk to you. I'm still job hunting, not giving up, and my brother continues to help me with the cleaning." "Chloe, hi. Listen to me, Chloe. There's an opportunity. Our company needs a PR manager, with the condition that you'll have to take some qualification enhancement courses. How does that sound? Can you handle it? I've vouched for you, even though I don't know your professional capabilities." "Marcus, my goodness, I'm thrilled. Oh, hello. I got so excited I forgot to greet you. Of course, I can handle it, don't doubt that." Even over the phone, Marcus could sense Chloe's enthusiasm. He was glad he could help her after all. The promise he had made to Chloe weighed on his mind. Of course, the promise didn't carry any obligations, but it still weighed on him. He wanted to help Chloe, and he did. At least he could help her, even if he couldn't do the same for his main person, Ella. Chloe found joy in her job, something that suited her. And there was something else: she was happy that she could not only hear Marcus, but also see him, since they worked in the same company. And she had fallen in love with Marcus. Chloe admitted it to herself without hesitation. How could she not? Attentive, kind, intelligent, and handsome to boot. It was a pity he was married. Some woman was lucky to have a husband like Marcus. Chloe had never been that fortunate with men. She was attractive and smart, but luck had never been on her side. Oliver and Chloe had been in a serious relationship for over a year, but it all came to an end when her mother fell ill. Oliver straightforwardly stated that he didn't want to deal with someone else's problems. Chloe didn't have much time to cry over dashed hopes. She had her sick mother to care for and staircases to clean. But now, an uncontrollable feeling had awakened within her, one she couldn't and didn't want to fight. She had let it into her heart, and she had no intention of parting with it. She loved Marcus, truly loved him, without any conditions, knowing he was married and likely loved his wife. Back at the cafe, Marcus had made it clear that he wasn't available, and not only that, he was married. He had hurriedly left Chloe, not even escorting her home as it had already gotten dark. The closeness between Ella and Marcus had dwindled to almost nothing. The incredibilities, the allure that had drawn Marcus to his wife, had disappeared from Ella. She wasn't the same Ella Marcus had loved. He realized that along with the loss of their baby, not just their joy had vanished, but their love too. Did Ella realize this? He didn't know, as they hardly spoke to each other, growing farther and farther apart. Chloe had never made Marcus feel embarrassed about himself. With all her knowledge and efforts, she proved to Marcus that he hadn't vouched for her in vain. Work kept her distracted from thoughts about her mother's death, and it also distracted her from her love for Marcus, which she carefully concealed even though her eyes betrayed her. Whenever she saw Marcus, her eyes lit up as if with fire, and against her wishes, a blush spread across her cheeks. Marcus saw and felt that Chloe liked him at the very least, liked him, but not more than that. He didn't feel the same stirring emotion he once felt for Ella. When he went to sleep and woke up with thoughts of her, where did it all go? Where does love go? He didn't know. If he did, he would run there and bring it back. Bring back his love for his Ella, whom he now only pitied. The company's Women's Day corporate event was in full swing. Everyone, who was rather tipsy, was having fun and fooling around. Marcus noticed that Chloe was getting a lot of attention from men at the party. She didn't miss a single dance, and she was so good at it that Marcus just sat and admired her. He didn't dare invite her to dance. He was afraid. Yes, afraid of the touch of their bodies. Even now, he desired her. When they announced the slow dance, she invited him herself. As they touched, he understood that tonight, right now, he would walk Chloe home and stay the night with her. Everything that was supposed to happen between a man and a woman, between Marcus and Chloe, happened. Marcus was happy as long as the magic of their closeness lasted. He hadn't experienced anything like it in a long time. As Chloe held him, she was in the euphoria that Marcus had just gifted her. While Marcus felt a pang, he thought of Ella, and he wanted to go home. She wasn't aware of his corporate event, and she hadn't called him even once the whole evening. That worried him. "It's time for me to go home," Marcus said. He called a taxi and started getting dressed. "Are you not staying?" Chloe was surprised. "Did you feel bad with me?" "You know we had a good time," Marcus replied, "but I need to go home." "I understand, I'm sorry. I momentarily forgot you were married." When he returned home, Ella was awake. The night lamp was on. She was lying on the bed, propped up her head, and asked as if she didn't care about Marcus' response, "Did you find someone else?" Marcus remained silent. He didn't want to lie but also didn't want to tell the truth. "Are you going to leave me?" she asked and immediately answered herself, "Of course, you will leave me. Why do you need someone like me? I can't have children." "Don't say that. I won't leave you. Let's sleep. I'm tired. We had a company event. Tomorrow is a holiday, your Women's Day if you remember." "I remember," Ella replied and turned towards the wall. Now, whenever Ella didn't want to talk, she turned to the wall, signaling to Marcus that the conversation was over. From that very company event, Marcus and Chloe began a passionate affair. Marcus was satisfied that Chloe didn't cross any boundaries. They were simply lovers. He got from her what he lacked with Ella, and Chloe never asked unnecessary questions. Of course, Chloe wanted Marcus all to herself, but she kept quiet about it, afraid to scare him off and lose him completely. When he left her to go home, she reassured herself, "Let things stay as they are, as long as he's with me. Well, fate has made me love a married man." She didn't ask unnecessary questions because she knew if a man wanted to, he would tell her everything, and if he didn't, then there was no point in sticking her nose where it didn't belong. The perfect lover. She laughed at herself. Although the status of just a lover didn't please many, but it pleased her. It was better than nothing. She concluded that Marcus' marital bonds might not be as strong, considering he visited her almost every evening. Sometimes all you needed to do was wait, and she waited. However, she knew waiting for something could lead to waiting for a very long time and ultimately end up alone. Right now, she had Marcus, and he had her. What would happen afterward? She didn't want to think about the after. For a while, Chloe used protection to avoid getting pregnant, but after half a year of being with Marcus, she decided to have his child. And who else to have a child with, if not the one she loved? She knew that Marcus didn't have children with his wife, and perhaps that's why something was amiss in Marcus' family. What if her pregnancy would push Marcus toward a divorce from his wife? Of course, it was a risk, but she was ready for it. She wanted a child from Marcus. "I'm pregnant, Marcus," Chloe said, and was startled by her own words. "Why?" Marcus asked. "Chloe, why complicate everything? You know I'm married. I won't leave my wife." Chloe was angered by his words. The once patient Chloe suddenly retorted sharply. "Married? Yes, you're married. I'm not trying to take you away from your wife. I'm just stating a fact. What's the due date? Maybe." "No, there's no maybe. I will give birth to our child, and that's it. Whether you accept it or not is up to you." He wanted Chloe to terminate the pregnancy, like Ella did once. In the first few moments of hearing the news, he wanted that, not even understanding why. He was perplexed. Perhaps he saw it as a betrayal toward Ella. Ella couldn't have his child, but another woman could. He had once judged and not understood Ella when she confidently chose to have an abortion, and now he was ready to push Chloe toward that. He wanted a child. A woman who could bear his child was here, but now he wasn't sure if he wanted this child. If it were Ella telling him this news, it would be different, but Chloe wasn't his wife, and he didn't know if he wanted her to be. Chloe and Ella were from different worlds, and Marcus' feelings toward them were different. Ella, despite not being loved, was dear to him. They had been through a lot together. He didn't know how to explain his current relationship with his wife. They simply lived under the same roof. Maybe it was the past that tied him to Ella. Their past was colorful, something he didn't have with Chloe. But there was the pregnancy, something Chloe desired. And for him, he needed to think about it, weigh everything, understand, and prioritize. What did he need? "Chloe, I don't know what to say. It's unexpected. You made your decision, but you didn't think to ask me. I knew you'd be against it, and I want a child from the person I love. It's important to me, but Marcus, you have the right to do what you think is necessary. I understand. You're married and all that, but the child is already inside me, and I will carry and give birth to it regardless of what you say. I need time. It's also sudden." Marcus repeated. "A man and a woman engage in love, sleep together, and a child is unexpected." Chloe smirked. She wanted to sting Marcus a bit, make him feel the pain of her words, not just her. "I think it all makes sense, and it leads to conceiving a child." He had never seen Chloe this slightly arrogant, audacious. He saw a different side of her, determined, when she could stand up for herself and her child. Her child. But it was also his child. No matter how much he tried to separate himself from Chloe and the child, he had to admit that if the child came into the world, it would connect him to Chloe. He couldn't hide from them. Was he planning to hide? No, after all, he needed time to comprehend what Chloe was offering him. And what was she offering? Of course, she was offering, but without belittling herself, with dignity. "Chloe, let's suspend our connection for a while. We need to figure ourselves out." Chloe understood. He was backing down. If she clung to him now, she'd likely lose him forever. "Fine," she said as indifferently as possible. "Go ahead and figure things out. I've long since examined myself. That's why I decided on the child. But you take your time. Just remember, everything has its limits, and everything requires patience." "What are you talking about?" Marcus pretended not to understand. "About everything, including us. And now, Marcus, go home. I need to rest." She had never pushed him away before, and today she surprised him. Could pregnancy, hormonal surges, have such an effect on Chloe? Or was it some feminine intricacies, tricks? Maybe it was even a trap he had fallen into. Was it worth trying to free himself from Chloe's grip, or not? He hadn't decided yet. He had known her to be yielding, not objecting to anything, and now these metamorphoses, as if this were not Chloe at all. but some other woman. He left, and Chloe allowed her tears to flow. Oliver had outright told her that he wasn't concerned with other people's problems. Marcus didn't say that, but she felt like a stranger to him. From that day, or rather that evening, Marcus didn't come to Chloe anymore. Twice a week, he saw her at work and asked how she was doing and how she felt. "What do you mean? How am I doing?" Chloe smirked. "And my little one, and I feel just fine." She deliberately mentioned the baby and emphasized my little one, even though she didn't have much hope that she would have an abortion. "Marcus, why have you started coming home early?" Ella asked. "Did your mistress reject you?" "All you dream about are mistresses," Marcus snapped. "Come up with something new." "What's there to come up with? The facts are clear. You've been coming home on time for the past 2 weeks. You've started talking a lot." Marcus was angry. "You used to be silent, and now suddenly you're breaking loose." They didn't recognize each other, not really. Despite their connection, they had never truly talked. Each wanted to say something that would sting the other as much as possible. Neither held back. Marcus knew that the most painful thing he could do to Ella, she wouldn't do to him. Reveling in his disdain for her, he declared, "She's pregnant." "Who?" Ella didn't understand. "My mistress, if you prefer to call her that." Ella fell silent, because Marcus' words had struck her to the core. "Why are you silent? Don't you have anything to say?" Ella admitted, "We haven't had anything to say to each other for a long time." "Will you go to her?" "I don't know yet." "Well, you wanted a child so badly. Go to her," she said with a doomed tone. "I wanted a child from you, our child, which you killed." Marcus shouted, "I don't know why, but I can't and don't want to leave you, Ella. Admit it, we no longer love each other. We don't just sleep separately. We hardly speak to each other anymore. Why are we together? Why?" "I don't know," Ella said quietly. "I don't know anything. All I know is that you stopped loving me, Marcus, and I still love you, maybe even more than before." He grabbed her, held her close as he once did, tightly, and whispered in her ear, "Let me go, Ella, let me go." "Who's stopping you?" she cried out and pushed him away. "Go." "That's the thing. I can't leave, not yet. I'm afraid to leave you alone. I've been alone for a long time now, so make up your mind." And he made up his mind. He would never forget that evening. He came from Chloe, came late. Ella lay on the bed facing the wall, but she wasn't sleeping. He knew that for sure. He didn't see it, but he knew. "Ella," he addressed his wife, "I've made up my mind. We're parting ways." "Why are you telling me this now?" Ella cried. "You could have told me in the morning." "What difference does it make?" Marcus answered sharply. "Morning or evening, it won't change anything. Will you leave now, or wait till morning?" "Tomorrow, you'll go to work, and I'll pack my things and won't come back to you anymore. I don't want to pack them in front of you. I don't want to hurt you even more." She burst out laughing, loudly, hysterically. He was even scared, wondering if she had lost her mind. She had never laughed like this before. He grabbed her and held her close. "Calm down, Ella, calm down, my dear," Marcus said. "Get out." She shouted and pushed him away. "Damn you all, along with your child." Ella screamed. She looked at him in such a way that he involuntarily flinched. "Your child will be born dead. Got it? Am your lover's room, and may she only give birth to dead children." She screamed as if she had gone mad. "What are you talking about, Ella?" Marcus got scared. "Do you think you're talking nonsense? What do children have to do with this?" "I want it that way," Ella laughed. "Got it. Remember, you won't see your children alive. You'll only see them dead." He saw that Ella's hysteria was escalating. He slapped her in the face with a swing, and she fell silent. He went to Chloe, and in the morning, while Ella was at work, he sneaked into their apartment like a thief, or at least that's how he felt, and packed his things. Chloe didn't ask, and Marcus didn't tell her about the bitter breakup with Ella. Filled with curses, a heavy feeling lingered in his soul, and he kept hearing Ella's words, "You won't see your children alive. You'll only see them dead." It was said with such force, with such conviction, that it seemed inevitable, unchangeable. He began to believe Ella's words and worry about Chloe and the baby. After each doctor's visit, when Chloe reassured him that everything was fine, he would calm down temporarily. But then the uneasiness would return. Chloe found Marcus's concern endearing. She saw it as love for her and their little one, and she was happy. But sometimes Marcus seemed lost in thought, as if he was retreating into himself. In those moments, it felt to her that he wasn't with her but with Ella, and she felt a strong surge of jealousy. Yet she kept silent delicately because she knew there were no meetings with his wife for Marcus. Yes, his wife. He hadn't divorced yet, and Chloe didn't trust him. Ella didn't remind herself of anyone. It's as if she didn't exist anymore. But Chloe knew she was still there, and for Marcus, she was still present. Physically, he had broken up with her, but he couldn't guarantee what had become of his soul. On the surface, things seemed fine between them, but Chloe felt and saw a wall between them, preventing them from getting closer and becoming whole. Could the arrival of a child break down this cold, impenetrable barrier? For 3 weeks, Marcus lived with Chloe, and he felt a strong urge to call his wife, to check on her, to finally initiate the divorce process. But he hesitated to make the call, afraid of triggering another wave of hatred from Ella. And he wasn't afraid for himself, but for her. Yet, when he heard her voice, he realized he wanted to see her. He was with Chloe now, yet she was alone in their apartment, and something needed to be resolved about the apartment. After all, he was the one paying the mortgage. Chloe had hinted at a divorce from Ella, but he remained silent, pretending not to understand her hints. He had learned to pretend with Chloe. When he didn't want to address her, he pretended not to understand her claims and hints. He had changed, and he didn't like this new version of himself. It felt like he wasn't living but acting in a cheap plague called love and family. After living with Chloe for 3 weeks, he finally realized that he didn't love her and never would. Why was he with her? Was it because of the child Chloe was carrying? Here, too, he didn't want to deceive himself. He didn't want that child. Men want children only from the women they truly love. He himself didn't know what he wanted. Right now, he strongly wanted to see Ella. Why? He didn't know himself. Maybe it was because for 5 years straight, every evening after work, he returned home, and even when he got involved with Chloe, he never stayed the night, always returning home. It's probably the force of habit, Marcus thought. I need time to get used to being away from my own home, away from seeing Ella every day. He hadn't anticipated that it would be difficult, but difficulties arose. Chloe, acting like a wife, even though she wasn't one yet, proved herself on many fronts. She cooked deliciously, kept the apartment clean and orderly. Marcus was flattered, but it just wasn't the same. He missed Ella. Now that she was absent from his life, he felt a longing for her he couldn't explain. Ella waited for Marcus every evening, anticipating his arrival. She didn't call him. Her pride prevented her from asking for a date. In her heart, she couldn't let go of him. She knew how much he desired a child and understood that he wouldn't leave because of the child. But then he said he had fallen out of love with her. Most likely, it was true. He'd fallen out of love, or he would have come to her. The love she and Marcus shared was a once-in-a-lifetime kind, and Ella didn't believe that Marcus truly loved his new passion. There wouldn't be a repeat. One love can't immediately replace another. It just doesn't work that way. Ella's anticipation of Marcus every evening ended in tears and her own anger. She blamed herself for everything unable to bear him a child, not giving Marcus enough attention. She held herself responsible for him not straying, for her own decline in appearance, for resembling a mummy rather than a young, vibrant woman. Could she change anything? Apart from her appearance, she couldn't change a thing. So, she decided to work on herself, consulted a neurologist to manage stress, combat depression, focused on her health, her wardrobe, and began frequenting beauty salons. All these efforts were for herself, as she knew that transforming her outward appearance wouldn't win back any man. Sometimes, she didn't even want to live, yet she realized that she couldn't bury herself alive. Moreover, at work, people gave her strange looks and inquired about her health. Her appearance and disarray signaled to them that she had problems, hinting that she should address her issues. Ella understood that if things continued this way, she would lose her job, her only remaining lifeline, and she couldn't let that happen. After calming down a bit, Ella decided to call home and share her family situation with her parents. She hadn't informed her parents about Marcus having a mistress. She didn't want to worry them. She hoped that everything would work itself out between her and Marcus, that things would improve. But now, there was nothing else to be done. She had to tell them everything, especially since she needed their support. Who else could support her other than her mom and dad? She didn't believe in therapists and didn't plan to bare her soul to a stranger. Her parents had always been on her side, her saviors. Despite her father being a dictator at times, harsh and impatient, he loved his daughters and didn't allow anyone to harm them. And now Ella felt hurt, deeply hurt. So hurt that sometimes she didn't want to live. "Hello, my dear," Ella's mother greeted with joy. "I miss you so much. When will you and Marcus come visit? When is your vacation?" Ella couldn't hold back her mother's question. Tears welled up on their own. She tried to swallow them, not wanting her mother to hear her cry. "Wait, dear, why are you crying, Ella?" What happened? To her mother's concern switched to Ella, and she openly burst into tears. "Marcus," Ella managed to say. "Sweetheart, give me the phone." Ella heard her father's voice. "Daughter, speak up. What has your Marcus done? Don't stay quiet. I can sense it's about him. Tell me, don't be afraid." "He left me, Dad. He has another woman, and they're having a child," Ella said through her hurt. "Gone, and have you divorced?" Walter was outraged. "We're not divorced yet, but it's coming soon," Ella managed to say through tears. "I'll come soon, Ella. Don't cry over there. Don't do anything foolish." "I won't, Dad. I'm taking calming pills." "What a scoundrel he is, driving you to take pills." "I'll deal with him. He'll be the one taking pills soon enough." "Dad, he's not solely to blame for everything. I'm also at fault." "Have you found another man?" "No, Dad, nothing like that. I had an abortion." Walter's angry speech stopped abruptly. He fell silent. "Dad, are you there? Can you hear me?" "I hear you," her father responded wearily. "Why, Ella, why did you do this?" "I had 2 more years of studying left, so I did it, because I was foolish, Dad," Ella sobbed over the phone. "And he insisted on it. He was against it, but I didn't listen to him. Now I won't have children, Dad," Ella cried. "I'll still come to you." Father's words cheered her up. She wasn't alone in the empty apartment. Her father, who had always been the family's commander, suddenly became incredibly gentle with Ella, which surprised her greatly. He cooked for her, took her shopping, to the movies, even though Ella knew he couldn't stand shopping malls or theaters. He did all this for her, to distract her from dark thoughts, and she was grateful. About Marcus, Walter hadn't mentioned a word. He didn't scold or accuse anyone, displaying a tactfulness that wasn't characteristic of Ella's father. Walter didn't tell his daughter that he was planning to meet Marcus. There was no need to worry her. It was a matter for men to discuss. On the second day of his visit, he called Marcus and arranged a meeting. Marcus didn't want to see his father-in-law, really didn't want to, but he had to go. Otherwise, Walter might show up at his workplace. If he did, then everyone in the company would know about Marcus's personal life, and likely in the worst interpretation. A thought occurred to Marcus. He could bring Chloe to the meeting. With a pregnant woman by his side, his father-in-law wouldn't dare lay a finger on him or utter a word. But then Marcus had the wisdom and courage not to involve Chloe. On top of everything else, he was tangled in the situation, and now he considered using a woman as a shield. He found himself detestable for even entertaining such thoughts. "Well, hello, son-in-law," Walter started his speech bluntly. "You think you can become a father in another family while still married? Well, answer me. Why so silent? Or did you think there's no one to stand up for Ella?" "I'm at fault," Marcus replied to his father-in-law. "If you didn't want Ella, you could have divorced her and dated other women. She had an abortion." Silence, the father-in-law yelled, and passers-by on the bench began to look around. "I know about the abortion. Again, I repeat, she wasn't needed by you. Get divorced. Don't give her false hopes. Don't torture her. I knew, an old fool, that a passionate love like yours wouldn't lead to anything good. I've seen how you couldn't spend a minute apart. If I were a fool, I wouldn't have married her to you. I would have shattered your foolish love." I felt sorry for Ella. I saw how euphoric she was. Couldn't get enough of you. Ack, Walter waved his hand. You're both fools, and you're a fool squared. Do you think I haven't had other women? There were others besides my wife, but no living soul suspected anything. Am I not a man? Don't you understand? Yes, you started too early. You hadn't even had time to fall deeply in love yet. Or did you fall for someone else? I don't believe it. I don't believe you fell for someone else. Walter answered his own question. I want to understand what happened, and I don't understand. I didn't fall for anyone else, Marcus confessed. Then why? Walter was astonished. There'll be a child there, my child. Yes, a weighty argument. Having a child, but starting a family life without love. How do you intend to live? I don't know. You're quite the slippery character, dodging answers left and right, not knowing anything, not taking responsibility for anything. I've gotten myself tangled up. And who's going to untangle you? Untangle yourself. You don't have any nannies. Are you a man in the end, or just a doormat? And divorce Ella as soon as possible. The sooner the better. Don't string her along with false hopes. She needs to finally find peace about you. I made you get married. I came to arrange your divorce. Tomorrow, there should be a divorce petition filed in court. Understood? Under the pressure of his father-in-law, Marcus suddenly realized that he had been postponing the divorce because he didn't want it, and now, almost with a knife to his throat, he needed to get divorced. No two ways about it. I don't hear an answer, the father-in-law said menacingly. I don't know, Marcus dared to reply. What do you mean I don't know? Walter exclaimed. I don't want a divorce, not until I want to, Marcus retorted. Silence. Ella and I will file for divorce ourselves, and now, get out, Walter ordered. Marcus got up from the bench and slowly walked away, feeling the father-in-law's gaze burning into his back. But after the conversation with Walter, he felt a weight lifted off his chest. Under the pressure from his father-in-law, he voiced what he was afraid to admit to himself. He didn't love Chloe. He didn't want a divorce from Ella. Ella arrived at the divorce hearing with her father by her side. He would have approached his wife if not for Walter, who looked at him in a way that extinguished any desire to speak with Ella. The father-in-law's gaze was a warning. Approach, and you'll regret it. In the courtroom, they had to walk in together. Walter stayed in the corridor, awaiting his daughter. Ella tried her best not to look in Marcus's direction. Even feeling his presence beside her was difficult. Seeing him was an even greater torment. She missed Marcus, missed him terribly. And just when they were about to be given time to reconsider their divorce, perhaps even call it off, Ella screamed, "Divorce us now. It's all been decided long ago. He has another family. Please, I need clarity. Divorce us." They were divorced. Walter embraced his daughter, leading her out of the courtroom, both in tears. It pained Marcus to see his ex-wife suffering. He understood he was to blame for her pain, and he also blamed Chloe, who was undoubtedly awaiting him with joy. Divorcing Ella meant marrying Chloe. That's what Chloe believed, but not Marcus. He knew for sure that he would leave Chloe. As soon as Ella vacated the apartment, he would move there immediately, to where he had always felt drawn back to his true home. According to the agreement they had drawn up with a notary, Marcus had to pay his ex-wife half of the mortgage they had paid and become the rightful owner of the apartment he once shared with Ella. Hoping that Walter had gone home after finalizing their divorce, Marcus called Ella. He knew she would be leaving for good soon, and he wanted to bid her farewell. Ella was departing for her hometown, and perhaps Marcus and Ella would never meet again. "Yes," she answered calmly. "What do you want? You know I'm leaving in a week. I'll wrap up my work affairs, and that's it. Goodbye, Marcus. Hello, new life. I would like to meet with you, to say goodbye." "No," replied Ella. "Ella, please, you've left such a mark on my life that I can't just let go like this. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." "How old are you, Marcus?" Ella laughed. Even over the phone, Marcus could hear the laugh of despair. "Maybe your best is still ahead of you." "Perhaps that's true, but I miss you." "Well, what did you expect? You did everything to make us part ways. I don't even want to stay in this city anymore. Everything here reminds me of us, and it still hurts. I'm planning to leave not only you, but also this unbearable pain behind forever." I'm begging you, please. Just one last meeting, Ella. No. Well, I'll come anyway and wait outside your door until you open. Okay. Come then. Come today, because I won't have time later. Got it? Yes, yes. Marcus hurried to reply. After work, I'll come to you. As Marcus entered, he rushed towards Ella with open arms. She weakly resisted, and he could feel it. Therefore, just like before, their bodies merged in a surge of passion. They were drawn to each other so strongly that neither wanted to resist it. It happened just like it had once before, when they had first fallen in love, when they were happy and believed that happiness would last forever. Now, Ella thought differently. There could always be the earth, the sun, the sky, but love was a fleeting moment, something that passed and left only pain. I don't want you to leave, Marcus said when they lay weakened yet content, and Marcus was stroking his ex-wife's hair and face. Your want and don't want will stay here with you. We're seeing each other for the last time, Ella replied. Am I your lover today? Ella subtly smirked. Is the pregnant wife waiting for you, just like I once did? She's not my wife yet, and she probably won't be. And what about the child? There will be a child, but not a wife. Cruel, Ella said. And you're a cruel man, Marcus. I didn't notice it in you before. I must have loved you blindly, not noticing your selfishness. They say love is blind. And are you not in love with me now? You're too confident, Marcus. What just happened was sex, nothing more. Don't lie to yourself, and to me as well. Lying doesn't suit you, but it suits you. I'm sorry. Despite your anger towards me, I'll stay with you until morning. This is how we say goodbye, Marcus said, and like lovers bidding farewell forever, they surrendered to the feeling they had once shared, as if they had remembered it. He didn't come home today, and Chloe was sure Marcus was with his ex. Chloe felt hurt. How could he do this to her, especially considering that she was pregnant with his child? She couldn't comprehend it. During this sleepless night, she realized that Marcus never truly belonged to her, nor would he ever. Another woman would come along, replacing his ex-wife. He would leave her, and she wouldn't try to hold him back. But why hold on to him anyway? To go through nights like tonight, unable to sleep and tormented by waiting. To spare herself the intense pain when he'd tell her, I'm leaving you. She decided to pack Marcus's things herself and show him the way out. Everyone bid their farewells. Marcus with Ella, Ella with Marcus, and Chloe with her beloved. Chloe couldn't pretend anymore that they were a real family, that everything was fine. Her anxieties were affecting the child, who was innocent in all this, except for her choice of father, a fickle man who said one thing and did another. Chloe believed it would always be like this. She decided it was better to be alone, to raise her child alone. She saw no value in having such a husband or father. The next day, after work, when Marcus returned to Chloe, his packed belongings were in the hallway. Chloe emerged from the room and said, I'm not your Ella, and I won't put up with this. You're free to go. There will be no tears. Leave. He was taken aback by Chloe's strength of character. Yes, she wasn't Ella, who used to cry and tolerate his visits to Chloe. He even gained some respect for the mother of his future child. He had planned to leave Chloe, but not now. He intended to do so in a week, after he moved out of his apartment. But now, circumstances had changed. He would have to go to Ella sooner, and where else could he go for the night? What do you want? Ella greeted Marcus with those words. We said our final goodbyes this morning. I have nowhere to go. Chloe kicked me out. She let you experience a night in my shoes and then kicked you out. Ella smirked with a touch of anger. What about the child you so desperately wanted? How will he manage without such a daddy? Ella, enough of this. You can ignore me altogether. After all, it's my apartment, and I have nowhere else to go. So, you'll have to tolerate me this week. Keep in mind, you won't be sleeping with me, and we only have one bed. What are you going to do? We'll sleep under different blankets. You know, the last thing I'd want during this final week is to see you and share a bed with you while sleeping under separate blankets. Maybe you should stay with a friend for this time or rent an apartment for a week. Well, I don't have the money to rent an apartment or a hotel room for a week. I gave you all my savings as payment toward the apartment debt. So, You'll have to put up with me. There's no other way." They went to sleep with separate blankets but woke up in each other's embrace by morning. "Don't leave, Ella. Look how things have improved between us," Marcus pleaded as the week came to an end and Ella's belongings were packed. "No, Marcus. It's all burnt out and healed. There's nothing left for me here. It seems you're the inconsistent type. Today you're like this, and tomorrow you'll run back to Chloe, or to someone else." Ella moved in with her parents for good, and Marcus was left alone. He hadn't been alone for a while, and this solitude might be for the best. Finally, he could sort out his thoughts and start a new life without Ella and Chloe. Without Chloe, well, not entirely without Chloe. The child was on the way, a son, to be exact. It wouldn't be accurate to say Marcus was overjoyed about becoming a father, but he was flattered to have a son. Perhaps this would mark a new phase in his life. Finally, he could live according to his own wishes, not catering to others' desires. Walter had married them to Ella, and he was the one to divorce them and take Ella home. Chloe herself decided to have the child. No one asked him about it, and he didn't resist. His life just flowed as it pleased, carried along by the current. It flowed as someone else wanted, not as he wanted. Initially, after Ella left, he missed her. He called her, but her phone was unreachable. Apparently, Ella had changed her number to prevent any reminders of him. And now, his life continued as it would, one cohabitant replacing another. No commitments to anyone except to his newborn son, for whom he paid child support and saw only on weekends. The kind of feelings he had for Ella didn't exist with any of his subsequent partners. That's why they changed so frequently. This kind of life suited him. He didn't have a family, and he didn't desire one. He enjoyed living for himself, and of course, for Nicholas, his son. Nicholas had a stepfather, whom he considered more of a father than a stepfather. It hurt Marcus, but he didn't express any grievances to his son. He hoped that someday his son would call him not father but dad, viewing him more as a real father. In Marcus's eyes, the term father had a deeper meaning than dad, and he felt an inch of jealousy from his son towards the stepfather. Marcus didn't want to see Chloe every day, so he changed his job as well. Now, he was a professor at the university where he and Ella had studied. He continued to expand his knowledge and credentials. Chloe found happiness with another man in marriage and started a real family, giving birth to a daughter. Nicholas grew into a handsome young man, resembling Marcus. He enrolled in the same university where Marcus taught, becoming his father's student. Marcus, the youngest professor at the university, was respected for his knowledge and intellect, and Nicholas finally understood this. Their relationship became more trusting and evolved into a strong father-son friendship, a significant bond for an adult son and father. Nicholas was proud of his father, and Marcus was proud of his son. "Nicholas," Marcus protested one day, "just call me father if it's not too much trouble. I'm your father. Can you do that? I've wanted to ask you this for a while." "Sure, Dad." Marcus hugged his son. Gradually, their relationship deepened, devolving into a strong father-son bond. Chloe even felt a slight pang of jealousy toward Nicholas due to the time he spent with Marcus, but she eventually realized that Marcus was indeed Nicholas's real father, and he wouldn't lead their son astray. Previously, Marcus had only been a father on Sundays, but now he felt like a true father to his son. Nicholas spent most of his time with Marcus, often bringing friends along. This led to tea parties filled with debates on various topics. Marcus encouraged the youth to seek knowledge, and they, in turn, helped him understand the current generation's aspirations and needs. With their help, Marcus felt rejuvenated in spirit. Today, Nicholas had come with a friend Marcus hadn't met before. Students had many friends, so Marcus wasn't surprised by a new friend of his son. The young man seemed familiar, not in the sense that Marcus knew him, but as if he had seen him somewhere before. "Ian," he addressed Nicholas's acquaintance, "you study at our university with my son." "No," Ian replied, "I'm studying at the medical university. I met Nicholas at a party hosted by a girl who turned out to be a mutual acquaintance." Marcus had never been to the medical university, as it wasn't his field. Rather, he had seen this guy somewhere else. Well, he had seen him, so why stress about it? He tried to remember where and under what circumstances he had seen him, but the memory eluded him. Was his usually phenomenal memory failing him? Marcus couldn't recall where he had seen this guy, but he dismissed these futile attempts, allowing his mind the chance to remember on its own. Sometimes, you don't think about something, and suddenly an image or some words emerge in your memory that provide an answer to the question. Every time Nicholas brought Ian along, which became more and more frequent, Marcus found himself asking the same question. Where could I have seen him? Marcus felt like there was something unpleasant associated with this young man, which worried him. What if Nicholas had become connected to someone who could involve him in something risky? With each visit of Ian to his home, Marcus's concern grew. He often and in detail questioned Nicholas about Ian, much to his son's amusement. "He's a great guy, Dad." Nicholas laughed at his father's concern. "What's gotten into you? Why the interrogation?" "Let me tell you, Ian is currently my best friend. We're like brothers. When people see us together, that's what they think. Ian and I joke around and fool around, almost like we were separated at birth and maternity ward." "Did you both actually get born on the same day?" Marcus was surprised. "No, of course not. We just say that for fun. Ian is actually 5 months younger than me." Nicholas's words planted more worry in Marcus's heart. Something struck a chord in his heart. Like brothers. Dear Lord, they really did resemble each other and resemble Nicholas, a son. Marcus believed and disbelieved his realization. If he hadn't paid much attention to Ian before, he would now interrogate him every time he visited with Nicholas. He would keep asking until he was sure his suspicions were baseless, or were they? Marcus worried, and the more he compared Nicholas and Ian, the louder and faster his heart pounded. The young men sipped tea, chatted, trying to include Marcus in the conversation. He blushed and paled, realizing how he hadn't noticed the similarities between Nicholas and Ian. Even their gestures were alike. Only Ian had his mother Ella's almond-shaped dark brown eyes, while the rest of Ian's features were a copy of Marcus. "Dad, are you okay?" a concerned Nicholas asked. "Are you feeling unwell? Why are you so pale?" "I don't know," Marcus replied, flustered. "Yes, I'm feeling a bit off. Maybe my blood pressure is acting up. It happens sometimes." "Dad, do you have any medicine? Should we call an ambulance?" Marcus was anxious, and he saw the same concern in Nicholas's eyes that his mother Ella had when she was worried about something. No, I'll take some medicine now, and it'll pass." Marcus didn't join the young men in the kitchen. He needed time to calm down. The next time Nicholas brought his friend Ian over, he would thoroughly interrogate him. He would ask about everything: his mother, where they lived, and who his father was, after all. Though Marcus was almost certain that Ian was his son, his and Ella's, it was just today that he realized that Ian was his younger self, albeit with his mother's striking almond-shaped, captivating eyes. Marcus had never seen Ian anywhere before. He had simply recognized his own genes in him. Now he just needed to clarify, although he was pretty sure even without clarifications that Ian was his son. "Dad, I'll stay here with you today." Nicholas snapped Marcus out of his thoughts. "I walked Ian home and called Mom. I'm fine now, but thanks anyway, Nicholas. Thank you for being here for me." Marcus's eyes moistened, and he turned away from his son, hiding his tears. "What's wrong, Dad? Are you feeling unwell? Worse?" "No, Nicholas, I'm feeling okay now, because I have you." Marcus remembered how he hadn't been thrilled when an unloved woman gave birth to his son. He was ashamed of those thoughts now. He was grateful to her for Nicholas. He would have been so incomplete without his son, without a single close soul. And now he had a son, and he was sure he wasn't the only one. And why did Nicholas single out Ian among all the other guys and bring him to Marcus? A mystery. Perhaps Ian knows he's my son, and perhaps his visits to me aren't random. Marcus thought, maybe I don't need to pry and complicate things. Maybe I just need an open conversation. "What's your dad's name?" Marcus suddenly asked his son's friend. "He has the same name as you," Ian replied, surprised. "I'm Ian Stork." And Marcus's heart was ready to leap out of his chest. No, he was expecting to hear this, but still, it was both worrying and joyful at the same time. Right now, he wasn't in control of his heart. Ella gave her son her last name, which meant she took back her maiden name. "Your mom's name is Ella?" Marcus asked, seeking confirmation. "Yes, Ella," Ian replied, even more bewildered. "Son, what's with the interrogation?" Nicholas was surprised. "We used to study together with Ian's mom, in the same group. Ella didn't mention anything about me." Marcus cautiously probed. "Nothing. Mom just said she used to study in this town." Marcus was afraid to reveal the truth to Ian. How would the young man take the news? Would he think Marcus was crazy? He couldn't open up to Ian and confess that he was his father. That privilege belonged to Ella. And what if his confession of paternity disrupted something in Ella and their sons' lives? He was glad he had found out about him this way. "My mom is in town right now," Ian said with a smile. "She came to visit me and misses me. So, sorry, I won't be here for long today. Mom is waiting. I promised to take her for a walk." Marcus's heart beat even faster and louder. Ella was here, Ella, the love of his life. He had never encountered a love like that, or even similar to it. Blushing, he stammered out, "Ian, can you give me your mother's phone number? We can meet as old friends, reminisce about the past times. We have a lot to remember." "Of course, Marcus, write it down. Although my mom forbids giving out her number without her knowledge, I think she'll be pleased to hear from you. After all, those were the best years, the student years." "Yes, we have a lot to remember," Marcus said softly. "Ian, please don't mention anything about me to your mom. I want it to be a surprise for her." "Deal," Ian smiled. Mom loves surprises. "Hello, Ella." "Yes," the girl on the other end of the line answered hesitantly. She recognized his phone number, but how did he find out? "Ella, hi," he used to call her that. "Hi, Marcus. Recognized me?" "I did. I remember your phone number well, and your voice is quite distinctive. I know you're here. Let's meet. Let's reminisce about the past times. Those are the last things I want to remember. Let's talk about something else. I'm sure we have plenty to discuss." Ella remained silent. "Does he know about our son?" she thought, and immediately convinced herself otherwise. No. How could he know? "There's nothing to worry about. Marcus, I'm sure there's nothing we need to talk about. Ella, shall we talk about our son?" Ella stayed quiet, unsure of what to say. "Why are you silent, Ella? Let me say more. I know our son quite well, and Ian comes to my house." "No," Ella shouted. "Marcus, don't interfere in our lives. You have no place in it. Do you understand? You hid our son from me, Ella. Why? Were you seeking revenge on me and Ian for our failed marriage, or did you find another father for him? Oh my God, how could this happen?" Ella couldn't hold back anymore. "How did you find out and track him down? It's incomprehensible. Apparently, it was God's will for us to meet. Nicholas, my son whom you once cursed, brought Ian to me. They're friends. That's how, Ella. But don't worry, the boys don't know what we know. You're his mother, and I believe you should introduce us to each other. Introduce me as his father. I already know that Ian is my son. I wouldn't dare do this without your knowledge. Have the courage, Ella. Do it, I'm asking you. If you resist our communication with Ian, nothing good will come of it. He's a grown boy and can decide for himself whether to communicate with me or not." "You're probably right. Let's start by meeting with you," Ella suggested. "We'll talk, discuss. I don't know how Ian will take this. After all, his father is dead in his eyes." "Where would it be convenient for you to meet?" "In the city center, by the theater." "Okay, today. By the theater, at 6 in the evening. Or how about going to a play? Do you have the desire?" "I would love to. I haven't been to the theater in 100 years." At the theater, theater-goers were bustling about. Some were waiting for someone. Some were asking about extra tickets. But among the crowd, he immediately singled her out. To say that time hadn't touched her would be lying to himself. But he felt he could recognize her even in her 100th year. Those you love, you recognize no matter how they change. She was sitting on a bench, squinting as she observed people milling around the theater. Marcus sat down next to her, and only then did she see him. He embraced Ella, kissed her cheek, and caught her ever-familiar scent, the scent of his beloved woman. How he missed that scent. None of the women, and there were many in Marcus's life, emitted the same aroma as Ella did. And it wasn't just the perfume, it was the scent of her body. "Hi," Ella said, flustered. "I forgot I saw you and forgot flowers. Here, take them, your favorites." She took the bouquet of white peonies, held them to her face, and as she inhaled their fragrance, she closed her eyes. "Oh God, what a fragrance," she said with her eyes closed, smiling. "You remembered my favorite flowers." I remember everything. I never forgot. And maybe we won't go to the theater. Let's go to my place, Ella." "Oh, I forgot." She opened her eyes and looked directly at Marcus. "Imagine, I forgot. I even forgot about your existence. If you hadn't reminded me." "Ella, why are you lying to me now? And most importantly, to yourself? Our son is a copy of me. How could you forget about me? He's my reminder. Let's go." She got up from the bench. "It's time for the play." Next to him was Ella, and he hardly noticed the scenes or the play itself. He held her hand, and when she tried to free it from his grip, he held on and whispered in her ear, "Please, don't deprive me of at least this." Usually, after a play, people discuss the performance, but Marcus and Ella's life drama concerned him far more than the play on stage. "Are you here for long?" Marcus asked. "For a week. 2 days have already passed. I'll leave in 5 days." "So little time," Marcus said. "So little time for us. We once had plenty of it, but someone didn't value that." "Ella, let's not blame each other. What's in the past is gone. But now I know I have a son, our son. Will you introduce us to each other?" "I will, but not right away. First, I'll prepare him for your appearance." Marcus hugged and kissed her. She pulled away. "Why do this? I'll introduce you to our son without all this. It's stronger than me, Ella. When you're near, I'm drawn to you, and it's inexplicable. It always has been for me." He wanted to tell her that he had only loved her, but then he thought it might be too much for their first evening together. They wandered the city at night for a long time, recalling places that had bound them together, discussing what had changed in the city. Marcus wanted to ask her if she was married, but he was afraid of getting an affirmative answer, so he postponed that question for later. "Call Marcus. Tell him you're staying with our mutual friends." Marcus asked Ella, "Come to my place." "No, Marcus, it's not necessary." "Sorry, are you married?" "No, I'm not married. I was married, after you I was, but unfortunately, we didn't have children, and he wanted children very much, so we separated. Then, as long as we're alive, what's keeping us from not sinning, Ella? After all, I haven't loved anyone else like this. You were the one and only." She gave him a suspicious look. "No, if you think. No, I've had women, but it was never the right thing. So I never got married." "Okay." Ella suddenly interrupted his speech. "Let's go to your place." Ella left Marcus in the morning, promising to talk to their son today, to tell him about his father. Marcus was excited and glad that Ella didn't object to his communication with their son. But how would Ian, now a grown and independent individual, take all of this? Maybe finding out who his father is, he wouldn't want to see him anymore. And what about their friendship with Nicholas? And Ella, she would leave soon, and he wasn't ready to let her go again. He had found her once more, and he needed her, or so he thought. But how did Ella feel about everything that was happening between them now? That question was bothering him. In Marcus's life now, there were more questions than answers, and it kept him in suspense. He didn't know if his relationship with his son was more important or his relationship with Ella. They were inseparable to him. He feared that Ian wouldn't forgive him for the years of absence, but he would try and do everything possible to reconnect with his son. Marcus promised not to call Ella today, but in the evening, he couldn't resist and dialed her number. She didn't answer, and his anxiety didn't allow him to sit still. The phone rang, and in his agitation, Marcus reached for it, but then realized that the doorbell was ringing. Before him stood his breathless son, his and Ella's son. From the way Ian was looking at him, he understood that Ella had told him everything. "Hello, Marcus," his son said. "I found out. Mom told me." "Yes, come in, Ian." Their awkwardness hindered them. Before they communicated casually, now it was difficult. "Are you really my?" Ian looked aside, nervously clenching and unclenching his fists. It's true, awkwardness grew. They didn't know how to behave around each other. So, Nicholas is my brother. Yes, that's right, son. Marcus answered, and only now did Ian look at him. Mom said you didn't know about me, Ian said, flustered. Marcus understood that it was difficult for his son to talk about all of this. He simply approached Ian, hugged him, and Ian hugged him back. He hugged his father out of politeness, because not long ago, Marcus was only Nicholas's father, and now it turned out he was also Ian's father. Marcus sensed that the embrace was premature for Ian, so he let him go and said, "Why would I have allowed such a long separation from you if I had known that you existed, Ian?" Marcus, Ian's voice trembled as he asked, "So, if we hadn't met Nicholas, you wouldn't have known about me?" "It seems so, but don't blame your mother for that. I have my share of blame in this too. My mother told me everything. She wanted to tell you about me back when I was just born, but my grandfather forbade her. He said it would be better for me if you both died. I'm sorry, she was afraid to disobey him, but now we know that we have each other." Ian smiled, and Marcus smiled back. "And my grandfather is no longer an obstacle." "Is he alive?" "He is." Marcus looked at his son, listening to him. With what warmth he spoke about Walter. He was his son after all, and Marcus was proud of him. Proud even though he wasn't the one to raise him this way, but his genes were a part of him, and that's why he had the right to be proud of him. "Ian, you know, I'm very glad that Nicholas and you found each other. I understand that young people like to live separately from adults, but I want to suggest something to you. Move in with me. Once your mom leaves, you can come over. 2 rooms should be enough for us. What do you think?" "It's quite unexpected. I don't know. I'll think about it. And if you don't want to live with me, I'll cover your rent." Marcus looked seriously at his son and added, "I owe you a lot, my boy. If you can. If it's not too difficult for you, call me father. I understand I haven't earned that title yet, but I'll do my best to become a real father to you." "Okay," Ian said shyly. "I'll try, father. I'll go to Nicholas now. He doesn't know yet, right?" "No, he doesn't know yet," Marcus answered. "I think he'll be happy to hear the news. He'll be in shock. Everyone will be in shock." Ian became animated. "Nicholas and I are brothers. It's unimaginable. Can I go?" "Go ahead, son. Give my regards to Nicholas. Maybe you both can come over sometime." "No, father," Ian said and blushed. It wasn't easy for him to pronounce that unfamiliar word. "We're going to a friend's birthday party today." Ian left, and Marcus called Ella. This time she answered, "Ella, thank you. I don't know how you presented our story to Ian, but he isn't resentful. He didn't reproach me with anything. It's certainly difficult for him, but he acknowledged me as his father and called me father. Thank you, my dear ones." Marcus choked up emotionally. Ella remained silent. "Ella, let's meet up. Please, don't turn me down. Ian went to see Nicholas, and I want to share my joy with you. How about going to a restaurant? What's holding us back? Let's go," Marcus suggested. "Let's go," Ella agreed. "You won't give up, will you?" "I won't," Marcus laughed. "I do love you, Ella." "Stop lying," she replied. "I'm not lying." "Don't leave, Ella," Marcus pleaded, waking up the next morning. "Let's forgive each other for past grievances and be together." "I forgave you a long time ago," Ella said. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have met you, and certainly wouldn't have woken up next to you in the morning. But to live with you, Marcus, definitely not." "Why, Ella, why? We're not children. We've understood and realized everything. We can spend the second half of our lives happily. I'm sure we can and should. Look, I'll hold you like this and won't let go." Marcus held Ella tightly against him. "You're mine, Ella, mine. I won't give you to anyone. No one's trying to take me away," she laughed. "I'll leave on my own. Go away. I'm used to living alone, and at our age, it's hard to change habits." "It's hard, but possible," Marcus countered. "Don't give up on us so easily." "No, Marcus, no. While I'm here, these last 3 days, or more precisely, nights, I'll be with you. But then I leave. My life, my work, my family are there, not here. But here, we have our son, Ian, and me. Ian will finish his academy and return home." "Who said that?" "Maybe he'll want to stay here." Don't anger me and don't push me to give up our last moments together. I'm sorry. Just let Ian make his own choice, please. Don't pressure him. Ella paused, then added, Ian still has almost 5 years of studying ahead, and during that time, a lot can change. She left, and Marcus couldn't stop her. With the arrival of their son and Ella, Marcus's life seemed clear to him. Here was his son, here was his beloved, and here was he. Why part ways? Why complicate an already complex life? Happiness was so close. All they needed to do was hold on to each other, trust, and not let go. Marcus called Ellie almost every day. Sometimes she answered his calls, and sometimes she didn't. He tried to win her back, but she didn't believe in their happy future, so she would cut off those conversations. During the first 3 weeks, Ellie answered Marcus's calls, but then suddenly stopped. He called her often, persistently, but she either declined the calls or he was met with her voicemail. The subscriber is temporarily unavailable. For a week, he couldn't reach Ella. Ian, is everything okay with Mom? Marcus asked his son when they came over with Nicholas. I've been calling, but she hasn't been answering. I'm worried. Everything's fine, Ian replied. I talked to her on the phone today. Can I tell her anything from you? No, nothing. I just thought maybe she's sick and can't answer me. I'll tell her you're worried, Dad, and Mom will call you back. No need, Ian. As long as she's okay, the rest doesn't matter, Marcus said sadly. His son picked up on the sadness in his father's voice, and to support him, he said, Mom doesn't talk to me much either. She's got a lot of work right now, end of the quarter. Of course, son. Marcus smiled at his son. I understand. Work is work. Marcus knew that work wasn't the issue. What had he hoped for? Ella was still young and beautiful, and she might very well have her own personal life. He was foolish, a silly fool. What had he expected? That she would just stay with him like this? An incurable romantic. He had built a dream for himself. 2 weeks of silence later, Ella called Marcus herself. Hey, she said casually, as if nothing had happened. You've been calling, I know. You were worried, Ian told me. Besides Ian, I didn't want to talk to anyone else. Hey, Marcus responded, a bit hurt. Ella, but couldn't you just answer? Just reply. Or am I so repulsive to you? Calm down, Marcus, she replied. I needed time to think it all over, but I haven't come up with anything. And what can you really come up with in this situation? I'm pregnant. She fell silent, and he was left speechless by Ella's shocking words. Marcus, I'm pregnant, Ella repeated. So you mean, you want to say? Marcus began to comprehend. Yes. Why would I tell you this if you weren't the cause of this pregnancy? He realized. Oh my God, Ella. Marcus mumbled, still in shock. And what about me? Do you understand what kind of shock I'm in? My dear Ella, we're going to have a child. Do you think before you speak, Marcus? I'm almost 44 years old. So what, Ella? Wait, are you trying to say that there won't be one? Again, you want to terminate it again, you want to end our child's life again. I don't know, Marcus. No, of course, I don't want that, but I know, Ella. Don't you dare, do you hear me? Don't you dare do that. Higher powers have given us a child to correct our mistakes and be together. What will people think? What will my dad say? Ella, to hell with what people say or think. This is our child, our life together. I'll come for you tomorrow. Can you hear me? She remained silent. He heard her crying. Don't cry, Ella. It's not good for you to cry. Even if you don't allow me to come for you, I'll still come. Come, Ella said amidst her tears. I'll be whatever you want me to be, just to be by your side and with our children. Stay as you are. I love you as you are, Ella whispered softly.